A player or someone you watch even more specifically because there's things in his game maybe you would want to add to yours in the league?
Man, I think Luka. I mean, Luka's amazing and he's incredible. I think the way he can not only score the ball, but also the way he passes. And I think the thing about him is, like, he's not the fastest, he's not the most athletic, but he can get his defender to move where he wants him to go, and he takes up that space, and he does a really good job of either keeping the defender behind him or keeping him to the side. So
watch her light up talking about Luka Doncic. The detail, the enthusiasm, the specific basketball analysis about how he manipulates defenders and creates space. Caitlin Clark just spent 24 seconds breaking down exactly what makes Luka's game special on NBC's Sunday Night Basketball. But here's what makes this moment significant. She's not just praising a player she admires. She's sending a message to her own head coach.
Luka Doncic, Stephanie White, how do you feel about Luka Doncic? Let's take a look.
A wrist sprain in that game and has been out since. And that puts a lot on the plate of players like Spencer Dinwiddie, who just came in, who finds Marshall for the corner three.
You see the Mavs just play differently without Luka on the floor. He's a guy who's high usage rate, the ball's in his hands. When he's not on the floor, that ball is moving, it's popping. Multiple players getting involved in action, and everyone's stepping up.
Lower usage rate.
When Luka's on the floor, the ball's moving, it's popping. You could just see Stephanie White, how excited she is. Oh, she's moving, it's popping. Oh, well, what if I have Luka, and when Luka's on the floor, we just make Luka a passer to me? Well, now she's doing that with the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark.
Now this is where it gets interesting. That's Stephanie White from 18 months ago, calling a Dallas Mavericks game as a broadcaster. Listen to the excitement in her voice when Luka sits down. The ball's moving, it's popping, everyone's involved. She's genuinely thrilled watching the Mavericks play without their superstar on the floor. Fast forward to the 2024 WNBA season. Stephanie White becomes head coach of the Indiana Fever. And suddenly, Caitlin Clark is being used exactly like Stephanie wanted the Mavericks to play when Luka was on the bench. Decoy sets, pick and roll actions where she's the screener, not the ball handler. Corner three-point attempts while other players run the offense.
The biggest moments the WNBA has ever seen. Looking forward into the future, what would you like to see happen as you come to a negotiation?
Well, honestly, I don't think it's just a big moment for the WNBA. I think all of women's sports, I think this is one of the biggest moments we've ever had. So, I feel very confident that we're going to get something done, and that's because we're in this moment because of the product we put on the floor. So we need to be able to continue to do that, and I know everybody's working really hard. There's a meeting tomorrow that's super important, and I truly do believe we're going to get something done here in the next couple of weeks.
Caitlin Clark appeared on NBC to discuss CBA negotiations, the league's growth, expansion teams. Standard promotional stuff for the WNBA's biggest star during the offseason. But she made sure to work in that Luka Doncic breakdown. She could have praised any NBA player, she could have talked about Steph Curry's shooting, LeBron's court vision, or any number of stars. She chose Luka. She chose to explain, in specific detail, how he controls case, manipulates defensive positioning, and dominates the ball while still making everyone better. The exact opposite of how Stephanie White used her last season.
They would have done nothing but trash the owners in this moment. Instead, Caitlin Clark actually offers a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of professionalism, which is rare coming from players in the WNBA. That's why Caitlin Clark sticks out like a sore thumb. Because when she goes in these settings, she does sound professional. She does carry herself a certain way. I hate that. If you guys tuned in last night on Sunday Night Heat, I hate that they didn't give her a box here. Just give her a box. Make her look a little taller. Just give her a box. She's Caitlin Clark. Indeed. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Do you think a deal is going to get done? Am I reading into the Stephanie White stuff? I want to hear what you guys have to say. Like the video, subscribe, that would mean so much to me.
Here's what you need to understand about Caitlin Clark. She doesn't make careless public statements. Every interview, every media appearance, every social media post gets scrutinized by millions of people. She knows this. She's been living it since her sophomore year at Iowa. So when she goes on national television and spends half a minute praising the ball-dominant, offense-initiating style of Luka Doncic, while her head coach has publicly celebrated the opposite philosophy, that's not an accident. That's calculated. Look at the specifics she mentioned. Luka's not the fastest or most athletic, but he gets defenders to move where he wants them. He takes up space, absorbs contact, keeps defenders on his hip. Then Caitlin says something revealing. She always wants to run away from defense, rather than absorbing contact and taking up the space they give her. That's not just basketball analysis. That's her hearing what she wants to work on, what she wants her coach to let her work on. Because you can't develop those skills when you're standing in the corner, waiting for the ball, or setting screens for Kelsey Mitchell.
Real quick, you got Melo there, you got Reggie Miller there. How many WNBA games do you think that they've watched that Caitlin Clark wasn't playing in? Let's be real. How many WNBA games do you think that they watched that Caitlin Clark wasn't playing in? But on a serious note, you take what Caitlin Clark says and you compare it to things that Natasha Cloud says, you compare it to things that Nafisa Collier says, you compare it to things Aneka Ogwumike says, you compare it to things Brianna Stewart says. Clearly, you can take one side a little bit more serious than the other.
Now let's talk about the CBA negotiations, because this is where Caitlin continues to separate herself from other WNBA stars. Professional, measured, optimistic. She believes a deal will get done in the next couple weeks. She talks about the growth of the league, sold-out arenas, expansion to 14 teams with 18 on the horizon. Compare that tone to what we've heard from other star players during these negotiations. Brianna Stewart, calling the owner's offers disrespectful. Nneka Ogwumike, suggesting the league isn't taking players seriously. Natasha Cloud, tweeting about how the percentages are laughable. Caitlin takes the opposite approach. Business is booming. We need to keep meeting the moment. Both sides are working hard. She sounds like someone who understands negotiation, requires both parties to feel respected. But here's where the Stephanie White situation becomes more than just basketball philosophy. It becomes about trust and communication. Because if Caitlin felt like her coach understood how to maximize her abilities, if she felt like Stephanie was building an offensive system that would let her develop into a Luka-type orchestrator, she wouldn't need to send coded messages on national television. The Indiana Fever went 20-20 last season. They made the playoffs for the first time since 20. Caitlin Clark won Rookie of the Year. By traditional metrics, the season was a success. But watch the playoff series against Connecticut. Watch how the Fever's offense stagnated when they needed buckets. Watch Caitlin get stuck in actions that didn't leverage her playmaking. Stephanie White inherited a team that went 13-27 the previous year and immediately improved to 20. That's impressive. But she also inherited the most talented rookie since Candace Parker, a player who averaged 19 points and 8.4 assists while breaking the single-season assist record. A player who draws defensive attention unlike anyone in WNBA history. And the offensive system often treated her like a role player. Listen to how Reggie Miller and Carmelo Anthony engage with Caitlin during this segment. They're genuinely interested, asking follow-up questions, treating her like a peer who understands basketball at the highest level. This is NBC's Sunday Night Basketball, the premier NBA broadcast slot, and Caitlin Clark fits seamlessly into that environment. Which raises an uncomfortable question. How many WNBA games do you think Reggie Miller watches when Caitlin's not playing? How many times has Carmelo Anthony turned on a Fever game that didn't feature the league's biggest star? The honest answer is probably zero. That's not a criticism of them, that's reality. Caitlin Clark is the draw. She's the reason casual fans tune in. She's the reason arenas sell out. And she's smart enough to know that her value to the league is unprecedented. So let's connect all these pieces. Caitlin praises Luka's ball-dominant style, while her coach has celebrated the opposite. She handles CBA negotiations with professionalism, while other stars attack ownership publicly. She appears on the biggest NBA broadcast and demonstrates she belongs in that conversation. And throughout all of it, she's positioning herself for leverage. Not in an arrogant way, not in a demanding way, but in a calculated, strategic way that shows she understands her value and isn't afraid to subtly communicate what she wants. The Fever have decisions to make this offseason. They need to add pieces around Caitlin and Aaliyah Boston. They need to improve their half-court offense. They need to figure out how to beat elite defensive teams like Connecticut. And most importantly, they need to decide what kind of offensive system they want to run. Stephanie White has one vision, clearly influenced by her belief that ball movement and player involvement creates better offense than individual dominance. That's not wrong philosophically. The Spurs built a dynasty on that principle. The 2014 championship team played beautiful basketball with constant motion and passing, but they didn't have Luka Doncic, and the Fever have Caitlin Clark. Dallas built their offense around Luka's ability to break down defenses, create advantages, and either score or find open shooters. They went to the NBA Finals in 2024 using that system. It's not aesthetically perfect, it's not egalitarian, but it works when you have a generational talent who can execute at that level. Caitlin is telling us, publicly, that she wants to develop those skills. She wants to learn how to absorb contact instead of running away from it. She wants to control pace and manipulate defenders. She wants to be the offensive engine, not a complementary piece. The question is whether Stephanie White is willing to adjust her philosophy, whether she can set aside her preference for ball movement and build a system that maximizes Caitlin's unique abilities, whether she trusts her star player enough to give her that level of responsibility. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If Stephanie doesn't adjust, Caitlin has options. She's under contract through 2028, but relationships in professional sports are fragile. Coaches get fired. Players request changes. Organizations make decisions based on keeping their franchise cornerstones happy. Caitlin doesn't need to demand anything publicly. She doesn't need to create drama or force confrontation. She just needs to keep doing what she did on NBC. Subtly, professionally, intelligently communicating what she wants. Praising the style of play she admires. Demonstrating her basketball IQ to national audiences. Showing that she understands the game at a level that demands respect. And if Stephanie White is paying attention, if the Fever front office is paying attention, they'll understand the message. Build around Caitlin the way Dallas built around Luka. Give her the ball, give her the space, give her the freedom to develop into the player she's capable of becoming. Or watch her spend the next 4 years, subtly, professionally, intelligently making it clear that she deserves better. That the league's biggest star, the player who sells out arenas and draws millions of viewers, should be used like the generational talent she is. That Luka Doncic praise wasn't just basketball analysis, it was a mission statement. And Stephanie White needs to decide if she's going to listen.